Frank Reich to the Panthers. Head coaching hire. Thought it was pretty solid overall. Frank Reich has showed that he is a proven winner, that he can lead a team to the playoffs, even in the middle of your franchise quarterback retiring. Surprisingly, he still did the best that he could. Of course, he's been with the Colts forever, from coaching intern to, offensive coaching staff assistant. Obviously, receivers coach with the Cardinals, receivers coach with the Colts as well. Had some time with the Chargers, of course, with the Eagles. Back with the Colts again. He's had his time in the NFL. Again, we know that, just like Jonathan Gannon did. And people do forget that after a 1-5 start with the Colts, he led them to a 10-6 record, winning 9 of their final 10 games, and that was with an Andrew Luck. I want to say that was in Andrew Luck's last season, if I'm not mistaken. And then you looked at that time, they had become just the 3rd team in NFL history to do that, following a 1-5 record, following that type of start, and then reaching that postseason for the first time for the Colts in general since 2014. So Frank Reich has definitely done big things for the Colts, and I think he's going to be able to transfer that over into Carolina as well. Now, of course, they go on and they beat the Texans in the wild card round that year, 21-7, and then they lose to the Chiefs in the divisional. So it's kind of like a super high, back down so low, which it is what it is, of course. But Frank Reich has showed that he's a winner and that he can do things in the NFL. He can lead you to a playoff win. He was doing pretty solid with Andrew Luck, obviously, until things happened, injuries, retirement. We know how the story went. But even following Andrew Luck's sporadic retirement before the 2019 season, his time, I feel like, was really stained with a lot of quarterback instability. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett was in 2019. Phillip Rivers was in 2020. Carson Wentz was in 2021. And then you had Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger back to Matt Ryan in 2022. And I think there was another quarterback like Davis Wyatt or something. I don't know. It was on a graphic from the Herd when they were talking about how the Eagles haven't played any Pro Bowl quarterback. So, it's been very unfortunate, right? Then, of course, he gets fired this year after starting 3-5-1, fired on November 7th. And I just really hated it because, again, the Colts didn't feel like the Cardinals, but, just a couple years back, like, the roster was great. The defense was awesome. I mean, we were talking about Bobby Okereke. We were talking about I think it was Julian Blackman, we were talking about a lot of these, Malik Hooker. We were talking about a lot of defensive players, young, middle-aged, and veterans that were just really making this team a powerhouse. And it's just like, damn, I've been saying that Matt Ryan should have went to the Colts for a year. It finally happens. It looks like shit, unfortunately. Can't even sugarcoat that. So it really sucks because it feels like the Colts were like on the verge of a breakthrough, but from like bad to average, not even from average to good, but it felt like it had a positive uptick, obviously, with the team. Now, when you just look at some of his stats here, and again, I want to give Frank Reich his credit. He was 10-6 in 2018 when he lost to the Chiefs. Like I mentioned, went 7-9 the year after when Andrew Luck retired. Goes 11-5 and then loses to the Bills in the AFC wildcard game. That was in 2020 when they went 11-5. They go 9-8 with Carson Wentz, and then they go 3-5-1 under Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, whoever the hell was taking snaps under center, and then he was fired, like I said. So overall, he was 40-33-1 in his head coaching tenure. He's a strong offensive play caller. We've seen that, but unfortunately, he's had those very unstable quarterbacks in his time in Indianapolis, and we'll never know if that was the front office or if that was just him. We will never know how much of that was on him and was on the front office. And I just got to say, Matt Ryan did not deserve that. He deserved the trade, but he didn't deserve to go out like that. It's so unfortunate. Like, I hate when I feel like teams are just, and maybe this is sports, right? They're just a move or two away, but they fumble it so bad. And it still bothers me to my core. It definitely does. And I hated to see Matt Ryan, his career kind of come to a halt like that. But I know they said they're 100% going quarterback in this draft, talking about Frank Reich to the Carolina Panthers here. And we know the news will unfold as things happen. So believe it or not, when you look back, and, I was talking to a good Panthers fan about this, when you look back through the history of the Panthers franchise, this is no joke, the first offensive coach in Panthers history. You got Ron Rivera, you had John Fox, even the interims at that time, those were defensive guys. The true cornerstone coaches of the Panthers were defensive guys at the end of the day. And you look at the fact that they had a solid run game this year, and I feel like if they can get the quarterback right along with Frank Reich already being hired, we could see a turnaround here and kind of surprise people sooner rather than later here in the NFL. Plus, we know Frank Reich coming from the Colts, going to the Panthers, he's got a lot better of a roster and just more talent in Carolina than he did in Indianapolis. So overall, this is a much, much better situation for him. But I want to elaborate a little more on that quarterback situation because this could be really pivotal, really, really pivotal for Frank Reich and the Colts. So, I don't know if we can call it a knock, but one of his traits is he wants that big 6'5" pocket passer, not necessarily cookie cutter, but really fundamental, doesn't move a lot in the pocket type of guy, right? Someone strong who can stand in the pocket, deliver the football, read defenses. So you look at the Phillip Rivers, the Carson Wentz's, the Peyton Mannings back in the earlier days when he was coaching with him, Matt Ryan. He never sought out those, quarterbacks that are being highly acclaimed in the draft now. Obviously, how, Josh Allen can move. And, I get it. Mobile quarterbacks aren't necessarily a very exciting topic for, I don't even want to say old heads, but for traditional watchers of football, they don't really care about the new mobile style of quarterback. And I can kind of get with that because pocket passers have been proven in the game. And again, Frank Reich doesn't really want to go for those mobile types of quarterbacks that we drool over all the time. So you got to ask the question of, would he actually pull the trigger on an Anthony Richardson, on a Bryce Young, potentially on a CJ Stroud if they get the chance, or excuse me, on an Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young in this draft that are known to be a little more shifty. Obviously, CJ Stroud moves as well, but he is a pretty good pocket passer. Obviously, taking a look at Will Levis, those tendencies could make him flip on the type of quarterback that they decide to pick. So, that could be a major, major X factor for this team. The Panthers want a quarterback. They need a quarterback. I'm going to give this Frank Reich hiring an A-. Want to check back in on the chat? Nobody yet. Let me get a sip of water here. That's too good. I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you.